and get ready for Are We There Yet? Your life will never be the same. As we get ready to go into this series entitled, Are We There Yet? I want you to keep in mind that the more things change, some people say, the more they remain the same. As we explore this chapter, we understand that the Bible is full of revelation. The Bible is full of prophecy and different things that are foretold. Even in this hour, there are things that you and I are walking out. We're walking through those things. They were foretold in the Bible, that it would happen, that you would see that. So it's great to look at life in a positive note. Definitely we have a hope that things will get better, and a hope that things will line up in a positive way. But yet we have to balance that with the reality of where we are. So as we go through 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter, I want you to just know that yes, there is hope. But right now, are we there yet? Are we in that place that 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter says we would be? Are we there yet? And if we are there, and as we begin to reflect or take a reflective view of what's going on right around you, then how should we govern ourselves? So, the first part, we're going to talk about the character of men and women in the last days. What type of character will we be confronted with? What are those things that we will see, those things that will come our way, and certainly those things that we do not want to be a partaker of, or we don't want to be involved in it? Look at somebody and say, you want to be on the good side of things, not the bad side of things. Or just look at one more person and tell them you want to be on the good side of things and not on the bad side of things. Are you ready? 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation of the Bible. And this is Paul's letter to Timothy. And we know Timothy was like a protege of Paul. Paul poured into Timothy, gave him advice, gave him insight, and Paul was considered a father in the faith for Timothy, or a father in the Lord. And it is always good to have a mentor or someone in your life who's already been there, done it, and can forewarn you of the dangers ahead. It's okay to experience different things in life, but it's very dangerous to go throughout life, and if you find out anything, you learn it the hard way. Sometimes there are things that you can avoid if you would just take the advice of a mentor or someone that's more learned or someone that's more mature than you are, and you don't have to go through things the hard way. Sometimes in life, and I'm getting you ready for this, as he's telling Timothy, who's a young pastor at this time, Timothy, don't be afraid. He even went so far as to say, Timothy, wait a minute, God has not given you the spirit of fear. Because some things can come upon you as we bring it back to where we're living in the year 2021. If you weren't strong, or I am not strong in our faith, it would cause us to be shaken like, what? No, that didn't happen, right? So as we even go into dealing with a pandemic and dealing with chaotic things as far as the economy and deaths and murders, and then staying positive and focused in that, I think we all can agree that the world that we're living in is somewhat very different than it was 5 years ago. So as Paul is now transitioning out, he's in a prison and he's writing this letter to Timothy. And Paul knows that chances are he's not going to make it out of this prison cell alive. As a matter of fact, Paul was beheaded. So I can imagine Paul just wanted to pour into Timothy everything he had, in the hopes that Timothy would grasp it, not be shaken, but will remain focused as he continued the work of ministry. So let's look at it. He says to Timothy, we're in 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. You know this, Timothy, that in the last days there will be very difficult times. So as we know that this letter was written, a couple of thousand years ago or so, somebody may say, well, hey, that was then and this is now. And you said the last days, and when are the last days, and when are we going to see all of this? Well, the challenge with that thinking or mindset is we're actually living, or we actually see some of these things that are happening, correct? So we can't put a date on what we would call the last days, but we certainly can open up our eyes to the signs of the times. My Lord, look at somebody and say there are signs of the times that we're living in. So as we go back to the Word of God, you know this, Timothy, that in the last days there will be very difficult times. For people will love only themselves and their money. They will be boastful and proud, scoffing at God, disobedient to their parents, and ungrateful. They will consider nothing sacred. They will consider nothing sacred. Oh my God. I can remember years ago where there were certain things, especially as it relates to relationship with God, the way you praise and worship, the order of service and those things. Certain things were considered sacred. It was considered holy, and this is unto the Lord. So as you present what is your praise and worship, or as you enter into the church, that whole atmosphere is sacred. It's where the Spirit of the Lord dwells. It's where people's lives are changed. It's where they come to learn more about God. It's where their souls are hanging in the balance, and you want that when they leave, they're in a better place than where they came. It was considered sacred, the gathering together inside of a church. Well, and we'll just leave it there and say, Lord, have mercy on us all. So it goes to verse 3, they will be unloving and unforgiving. Oh my God. You can look at your headlines. You can look at relationships. You can look in the families. You can look all around you and you will find, where's the love? Where's the forgiveness? Where's the, I realize you made a mistake and you had a bad day. I forgive you. Where is, I'm going to love you in spite of my differences with you? Where is the, we don't agree. We definitely don't agree, whatever opinion is, but I still love you and I do not want to harm you. But Paul is telling Timothy that there's going to come a time where people will be unloving and unforgiving. Can you imagine living in a time which we do, where an injustice was done and 50 years later, you are still not forgiven for that injustice? Not to mention 100 or 200 years later. Unloving, unforgiving. They will slander others and have no self-control. Oh, we do understand slander. You can look at your media, slanderers. They will slander others and have no self-control. They will be cruel and hate what is good. And you can say, Dr. Ty, this is some deep stuff. This message is deep, and I don't feel that stirred in my soul, and I don't feel like clapping my hands and say, I got the victory. But can you imagine when Paul wrote this letter? He wasn't trying to make Timothy feel good at that time. He wanted to give him the truth. He wanted to give him something to be aware of. So when it comes his way, or when it came his way, he would not be as the deer with the headlight look. And even as we see this word of God becoming alive in the times that we're living in, we don't want to be like the deer with the headlight look. Like, ooh, I didn't see that come. Ooh, where did that come from? The Bible tells us these are the things that we're going to see in the days that we're living in. They will betray friends, be reckless. I'm on verse 4. Be puffed up with pride and love pleasure rather than God. Now, who is he talking to? Because you have people who have not said, I've dedicated my life to the Lord. They just listen. They listen out of curiosity. They're not what you call all in, right? And then there are some that have dedicated their lives to the Lord, and they've been in that place of dedication or commitment to the things of God for years, even decades. Then you have some that are hurting. Hey, Dr. I got on the trail. I tried it, but I was hurt so badly. Now I'm on the sidelines, hoping to gain hope somewhere. So they will betray friends. Who are they? They will be reckless. Who are they? They will be puffed up in pride, and they would love pleasure rather than God. And the unfortunate part of this particular verse is you will find that they are both inside and outside the church arena. Inside and outside the church arena. Inside the church arena. Why didn't you play the song that I wanted? Why did you cut it off so soon? Or, well, you need to speed that song up. You know, it's more of coming to be entertained rather to develop a relationship with God. Want it to be pleasurable and not relational, and studying and learning more about God himself. Relationship with God. Now, like I say, I know that this particular message is like, okay, all right, let's change the channel. But I do invite you, let's walk through this together, because sometimes the word of God could be like eating a dish that you really don't like, but it's nourishing to your body. You may not like spinach, but spinach is nurturing to your body. You may not even like milk, but milk is nurturing to your body. And there are parts of the Word of God that you rather not read it or even dive into it, but it's nurturing to your soul. Remember the deer with the headlight look. You don't want to be caught off guard when these things begin to unravel, even in a greater measure. They will act religious, but they will reject the power that could make them godly. Oh, I want you to highlight that. I want you to take time and really look at that and take some time to do a self-examination. Is my walk more of an act than the power of God manifested in my life where I am a godly person? See, it's a difference than acting religious and actually being godly. Why are there so many hypocrites and phonies in the church? There are hypocrites and phonies in the church. Rather than sit on the sidelines and say the church is filled with hypocrites, challenge yourself to become one of the real people.